Well, today, everyone, I am joined by a very, very old friend. So old. How old are you? Like, what, 21, 22? Or...
That's if we were old friends, you would know. No, I'm 21.
Yes, yeah. I was right on my first guess. So, yeah, my Gabriel Todd is probably the oldest friend I've had throughout all the years, who I've maintained my friendship with. And what's really remarkable and what I truly respect about our friendship is the fact that we have such polar opposite positions on virtually everything, every philosophical baseline.
Except for Avengers Endgame. I think we can both agree on that one.
Well, I mean, that's not, I mean, unless you're like blind and deaf, I think you would agree with that. You know, I mean, I have yet to meet somebody who didn't like that movie. So come on, man, you got to be a little bit controversial.
Continue.
So, for all, I mean, if anyone's been watching for any amount of time on my show, you know that I'm an extremely conservative person, and I'm also a very, very Christian person. Gabriel, why don't you give us a quick snapshot of your personal views?
Okay, snapshot. If I'm going to reduce myself to identity politics, I would say
you're a white male.
I'd say leftist, but not a tanky, not a Stalinist, just a regular old leftist. Let's see. I think a lot and have a very opinionated view of gender and sex. I definitely have my views on American empire and just imperialism in the world today. I'm obviously very anti-capitalist. Say that again?
Would you call yourself communist?
No, I don't think I would call myself a communist. I would call myself... I'd call myself...
call yourself, hold the camera up a little tad, because half of your face cut off.
I would call myself decapitated from the head up.
Okay, there you go.
All right. Let's see. I'd call myself probably an anarchist, maybe like an anarchist socialist.
Okay.
Where my main political belief is that everybody's equal, and the power structure that should best reflect that would be a power structure that is itself equal, one where nobody has more power than another, no matter what, and any system that can be implemented that would distribute power unevenly, capitalism, feudalism, totalitarianism, fascism, whatever. And yeah, of course, there can be those systems, and they can be implemented within different types of regimes. There can be totalitarian communism. There can be totalitarian socialism, you know, in a certain sense. But it's not true socialism. No.
What I love about Gabriel is that he's very self-aware about himself and about our my positions on many, many different things. And so that I will speak very highly of my friend Gabriel, is that he's a very honest person, you know, on not on what he believes, and he's very honest about representing me and respecting my beliefs. And I really do admire him for that. I just want to start the ball rolling before I start, you know, browbeating you or whatever. I'm kidding. So, Gabriel, let's. You talked about how you're anarchist. How would you define anarchy?
I would defend anarchy. I would state that anarchy is a political structure. Oh, you can't see. I use very Italian.
No, I can see you. You're okay. Good. You're good.
But you can't see my hands.
Oh, no, I can see your hands.
All right. Yeah. I would say that
very Italian.
It is a political structure.
Okay.
That focuses on that the main goal of it is to create a society which has the least amount of hierarchy, the most horizontal power structure, if you could imagine. And so
that sounds like a very difficult to quantify position.
Yeah, so there are anarchists that state that the state is bad.
Yeah.
And I, certainly agree with that, because having a state is a type of power structure. And so to look at, what anarchism really synergizes with, what it can is compatible with, it has to be another structure that also is horizontally positioned, at least for the power structure. So any other ideology that strives for something classless, or with, a single class, if you will, which that is communism's end goal. So anarchy and communism are compatible. Anarchy and socialism are compatible, maybe not as much.
Do you have any examples of anarchy that have successfully worked on a national level?
On a national? Well,
yes, national.
It's funny though, like anarchy.
I mean, if not, then we can move down to like city state or whatever.
Well, I mean, anarchy on a national level, a nationality, that isn't that a state? It's kind of,
yeah, I would say so.
Moronic, I would say. I mean,
well, okay, within a certain border,
borders are fascist. No.
Well, were you being facetious or?
Oh, but borders. Well, we could talk about borders after, because that's interesting discussion.
Okay,
but
I'd love to do that.
As far as successful anarchist societies, I would say I can't really think of any. The biggest thing is that most of them get co-opted by a state. The people who create anarchist societies, at least on a large scale, there are plenty of anarchist societies and societies that are trying to be anarchist on a local level. Mm-hmm. Even in Santa Barbara, there is a few, like co-ops, and there's some land that is its purpose, its appropriation is to be anarchist, and it's striving to be anarchist within a capitalist system, and trying to shed that as much as possible. But they exist on a small level. But anytime it gets relatively large, given, I'd say, the maybe inherent unorganized aspect of anarchism, of not having a state, it does get messy.
Right.
Especially when, and I think especially exacerbated by when there are very large, very powerful states.
Just to throw a bone to all the libertarians and conservatives listening, in a certain very, very weird.
Sorry, that would be another way I describe myself: a libertarian socialist.
Okay, so left-leaning libertarian.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the bone for all you libertarians out there watching. What exactly makes you believe that, since by your own admission they've never been successful, what would have to happen to make them successful on a I just don't have a better word for it, on a national level,
on a large scale?
Yeah, on a non-local level, something bigger than the local level. What would have to be in place for anarchy to be successful?
Well, I would imagine that.
And also, what leads you to believe this is the most logical and most pragmatic structure for society?
Okay, let's see. I'll answer them in the order they were asked. So, as far as what anarchism needs to be successful, I think that it necessitates on a large scale, it necessitates a global movement. If you want anarchy on any sort of large scale, it must be around the world. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just going to get gobbled up by the state that wants to expropriate it. You see that in states that aren't even anarchist, just from imperialist regimes.
Just an observation, a lot of socialists in America, or self-described socialists in America, I don't know if you agree if they're socialists or not, that doesn't matter, describe that in order for change to happen, has to happen from the bottom up. But from what you're saying, it sounds like the only way to implement it, it has to be global, and it has to basically be from the top down.
No.
Okay.
So, okay.
Enlighten my closed-minded capitalist mind. In
probably the most popular polemic in the early 20th century in Russia, one of the slogans, "Workers of the world, unite." Workers generally not at the top. In fact, I'd say by necessity not at the top. So it would have to be organized.
Well, okay, define worker, because people like President Trump work. I mean,
okay.
But I mean, you're really going to have to define worker before
okay, I would say workers are the ones who are employed, not the employers.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, of course, you're going to find things are much more messy when you have things with states introduced. That relation is much stranger.
For all intents and purposes, we'll boil it down to that. Okay.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, if you're employed, you're a worker. Doesn't matter where you work. You can work retail, you can work at McDonald's, you can work in a literal factory,
Sure.
The kind of picturesque worker of so much Chinese and Soviet propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Yeah, we get it. Okay.
Yeah, but no, just to be employed, that means you're a worker. And that's the majority of the adult population.
So we talked implementing it from bottom up rather than top down. How does that work?
Well, it requires organization. That's the crux of it. And to organize it on a large enough level, you need enough people that are passionate enough about it. Mm-hmm. It certainly doesn't have to be every worker. It doesn't even have to be the majority of workers.
Interesting. So you're saying a minority could do this?
Sure. If you look at, revolutions of the past, mm-hmm. Not all, it hasn't always been that the revolutionaries have been the biggest group. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, the revolutionaries just have to be larger in number, at least, than the state. There's a bunch of apathetic people out there who, when seeing people fighting in the streets, not saying that would happen, but when they see revolution, right. They just kind of sit back and say, well, whatever happens, that's fine.
Okay.
I'd say that most people are like that.
Okay. I know that there's a ton that you probably want to unpack, but because we're running out of time, I'm going to jump down to a very, very basic question. What led you to this belief? What was the path that you took, or the basic philosophical ideas you decided were right, and then led you to its logical conclusion?
The moment I stepped on a campus of college. No.
You haven't been to a college campus in how long?
No.
Yeah, that's the other thing is Gabriel is self-educated. I'd like to point out, you'd probably become more capitalist if you went to a college. Let's be frank.
Yeah, let's be very frank. Colleges are a safe haven for capitalism. The entire economics department. Okay, aside the point. How did I get to where I am? Well, it's interesting. It's kind of a network of beliefs, I would say. So, I would say that from the time I was born, or at least from the time I had like cognitive thoughts, that I could rationalize a worldview,
Okay.
of any sort of any sort of the imagination. I would say like when I was maybe 8 and onward, I was a Christian conservative, kind of what my parents told me to be. Like most people who are 8 years old, they're not super smart, and they'll just, and maybe not smart, that's not the right word. They're not, they don't challenge beliefs that much.
They're not, they're not able for independent thought.
Yeah. So they're going to believe pretty much whatever is imposed on them, which is kind of scary when you think about it. But
well, that's kind of how the world's operated since time immemorial. So
yeah.
So what changed you? What sort of things changed you?
So around the time I was 15, I really started to question what I was being taught. I think it really started with the Bible. Is the Bible true? And is every word in it pure, as my parents would say? And if so, what does that mean for me? Because I was having some very unbiblical thoughts at that time, thoughts that I could not stop.
So you're saying you were a normal person?
Pretty much, yeah. But I never thought about girls when I was 15. I always thought about boys. I wondered why, and that led me to questioning the Bible. And oh well, the Bible says being gay is wrong, but I cannot do anything to stop this. Maybe there's some loophole, some caveat, some different interpretation, and there are. Some people do interpret it differently. But when I started questioning the Bible, I just kind of stumbled down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos. And
you became radicalized to the alt-right.
Yes, I did. Well, almost. Because there's a pipeline of YouTube videos that goes from anti-theism, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Daniel Bennett, Richard Dawkins, whoever else, and it leads in the along the way you'll find the players like Jordan Peterson or Dave Rubin, but it ultimately ends in a place that I would call the alt-right. It doesn't take too long to get there, which is scary. And I want to let me be clear. No.
Let me be clear.
Let me be clear.
Yeah.
That this isn't something that I think is something that is implemented. I don't think Google is a right-wing corporation. I think that they're a capitalist corporation. They just want to make money. And it turns out that inflammatory, anti-theist, and then anti-SJW videos are what is popular. And they're quite literally capitalizing off of that. There's not any ideological thought that I think has gone into it. It's just they saw that was popular, and so they use the algorithm, and it pushes that.
I have great disputes, but for time's sake, please continue.
Okay. So from there, questioning God, I did actually get into like some. I was dabbling with alt-right. And I was very, very conservative, even if I wasn't a theist anymore. And then I kind of started watching some more philosophical debates. I would see like, okay, Christopher Hitchens has claimed that he's a Marxist, or has claimed that he was a Marxist. He's not alive anymore. It was a silly claim looking back on it, but I was like, oh, what does that mean? And so I watched some debates on Marxism, and you'll find debates with Noam Chomsky, with Zizek, but basically what it was just kind of lightly after dipping my toes in this kind of conservative part of YouTube, I found that there was also a huge community, not as popular, but a huge community of more left-leaning YouTubers. People like Riley J. Dennis, ContraPoints, who else? Oh, Sam Cedar. Just kind of...
Just a little plug in there for you for alternate
Yeah.
By the way, don't forget to like subscribe to this channel. Go on.
That kind of, they introduced some things, some topics, some issues to me. And I think in particular, ContraPoints, Natalie Wynn is her name in real life. She really resonated with me because she identifies as a woman. She wasn't born a woman, but she identifies as one now. And that resonated with me a lot. And it kind of turned out that, I was struggling with my identity at that point. And I started looking into, just what being trans was and how trans people are viewed. And that's what really drove me to the left more than anything else, was that, minorities, oppressed groups. I'm not saying I'm an oppressed group, but I am part of an oppressed group. Trans people, and gay people for that matter, although not so much anymore, are really not accepted by the right. But they are very much accepted by the left. And the left has a lot of theory that goes into, here's why we need horizontal power structures so that we don't oppress marginalized groups.
So I'm going to cut you off right there.
Yeah.
That was really great. Thank you for sharing so much about your life. And we will continue this conversation in 2 days. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the whole 22 minutes of this interview. I can't wait to discuss more with Gabriel. Please stay tuned, and you can do that by subscribing. So please do that. Thanks, everyone, and make sure to say thank you, Gabe. Get in the middle of the camera, you.
Thank you, Gabe.
All right, we'll see you soon.
All right.